Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, we'll say, calling my Yahweh, Shema, Shabbat, Shema, Kakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, the great millstone GMS who do rule and teach well. So, today we'll talk about the hot topic in the news today. Right? I saw it on my Telegram. I saw it earlier today while I was having lunch, at work. And, stopped at like some random, the bagel place. And, saw this going on. Alright, so we're just going to talk about it, right? Pope Francis dies at age 88, Vatican announces. This is cerebral stroke. Now, when I was in the restaurant at that time, they said it was because of pneumonia. And he died from complications from that. Which, I was talking to, my instructor at my job, and she's basically telling me that, when you get old like that, the changes in the weather will cause you to get pneumonia more easily, and, you can just die, faster like that, and then she was telling me about some other stuff, which I'll just mention it, right, that, she's taught to people that, older, they can, feel when they're dying, when you get to, a certain age, you can kind of feel, that you're gonna die, and, it just feels like a numbness, and it starts at your feet, and it just works its way up, and you just die, and that's how it, people die in old age, apparently that's how it feels. But I didn't know that, there was a whole, science and feeling behind it. I didn't know. But let's go into some precepts, because, you got Jeek, these people out here. Let's see here, people. Pope dies. People mourning. Let's see if we could get videos. Francis remembered around the world for his generosity of spirit. Yeah, the world reacts. You got all these people mourning. Alright. This is madness, man. Right? Number one, this is not the man you should be looking for, salvation, man. This man's, look at him, he's an Edomite, man. In the old Catholic Church, right, they got many things wrong, right? I believe the Catholic Church, if I'm correct, they're the main ones pushing the virgin birth, and the Christian Church push it. They be pushing, praying to these saints. And whenever I grew up in Catholic school, so I remember these things. You invoke certain saints' prayers, certain saints in your prayers, and they'll help you, and that's according to them, right? When these saints, right? They're in the spiritual world, but you shouldn't be praying to a man, the one that's wicked, right? Number two, you're praying to a man who, died back then, right? His spirit went up and he reincarnated, and he's someone else right now, man. He could be someone else right now. Depending on, the cycle and his cycle where he's at, right? You should be praying to no man. It's wicked as all hell, right? Of course, they believe in universal salvation, and that's wicked. So we'll just go piece by piece. This is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 6, verse 56. Next, verse 55. Right? I might start 54. After these Adam also, thou mayest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also of whom thou hast chosen. Right? Who's the people the Lord has chosen? Right? The nation of Israel. Right? So-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Right? All this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes, right? For us to have the rulership and control over, right? And then, you go deeper, really to the planets as well, man, right? Because, Like the scripture says, one man shall become 1,000, man. We gonna go to these different planets, and colonize those too, and bring the heathen there as slaves, and have them build our stuff up for us, and we'll still keep the Sabbath on these different planets, because these different planets have moons as well, and pretty much, that's how we get the Sabbath. You go into Sirach 43. I remember brothers breaking that down. I didn't think of that. Go to Sirach 40. Well, not the Sirach 43. I been on that one, but these planets, they have their own, they have their own moons, and that means they have to be a Sabbath, So we'll still keep the Sabbath on these different planets, right? But of course, for things such as Passover, the Feast of Booths, I think it's Pentecost. You do have to return. Everyone will return back to Jerusalem to keep it, And even going to that, like the kingdom, and your brothers would go into the cubits and all that stuff. Jerusalem, it's supposed to be like 1,500 miles or something. Like the area, the square mile area or something. So it's going to be very, very large, So, yeah, that's what the Lord has planned. The elect on this side. Like we'll see that first. We won't have to die on this side, right? But then in the kingdom, all Israel will be righteous. So for other people, so they'll come at them. Thou said they got nothing but be like unto spittle. It's like in the abundance of them to a drop that falls from a vessel. Right? So, like you spit, and you don't care about the little spit that come out your mouth. Like a drop from a bucket. I remember looking in G&T, like you're carrying a bucket of water. Like if you ever worked custodial work, whatever, and you lugged around and the big bucket of water, and you already had your mop laid down somewhere, and you're about to start mopping stuff. And it's that same thing. Or you had the one where you roll. I think they had the ones. When I was doing custodial work when I was 16, I think I was mopping the floors for public school with a bunch of other bunch of little animals. And I remember one of those kids brought a knife, and when I saw that, I quit the job. I left. I mean, he wasn't trying to stab me with it. I just saw it and I was like, yeah, that's enough for me, But it was just a bunch of little hood niggas working there, and I was miserable, being around these niggas, So yeah, kind of small dust and a bounce, right? Isaiah 40:15, right? There's nothing before him, right? So, but these other nations, they don't mean nothing to the Lord, man. His focus is on his chosen. The people that he's chosen is the nation of Israel, so-called Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans. Right now, the Lord, these heathen, which have been reputed as nothing, has begun to be lords of us and devour us, right? Because of the curses, right? And they had, the Pope. It's just a manifestation of that, man. Him being Edomite and being over us, right? This is the book of Psalm 146:3. Put not your trust in princes, nor in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help, right? Because these people out here focus so much on this man, I remember in school they taught us, well, not in school, in high school, in middle school as well. And they taught us all about him. They taught us about how he was like a great man. Like they really revere this guy heavy, man. And he's teaching the wrong thing. He's not even teaching them the right thing. I think they kiss his finger and things like that and bow to him. Right? There's all kinds of different things like that. Like that's ridiculous. I've never seen a man bow their knee to Elder Apostle Tahar, Elder Apostle Gabar, Elder Apostle Ramlab. I ain't never seen no man, do anything like that. Of course, we have reverence and respect for our elders and apostles, right? As we should, right? Because these are the men that came before us. But at the same token, right, these Catholic churches, they do it on a different level. And I believe they have something where they call it that the Pope is infallible. Let me look at. Yeah, so in Catholic theology, the Pope is understood to be infallible in a specific and limited sense, meaning he is protected from error when teaching officially on matters of faith and morals. This infallibility is not a general characteristic of the Pope's speech or actions, but rather a specific guarantee tied to the existence of a supreme teaching authority within the Church. Right, so they always change their doctrine around because they have the different decrees by the Pope, right? Not about his personal opinions, it's not divine inspiration, right? So they believe this man can make no mistakes, right? Pope infallibility is a dogma of the Catholic Church. This is from Wikipedia.org. Sees the virtue of the promise of Yahushua to Peter. The Pope, when he speaks ex cathedra, is preserving the possibility of doctrine initially given to the Apostolic Church and handed down in scripture and tradition. So they're using that. Yahushua gave to Peter, saying like, "Hey, you have control over the church. Pretty much who you decide to teach, will learn. We're giving him authority over the church, over the body, right? Which Peter was King David, things like that. So it does all fit together, right? And now they're trying to hijack that and say that, look, they're in that lot now. You're not even an Israelite, man. These popes nowadays. Right now, it was originally created by Jake, the Catholic Church, but nowadays it ain't ran by no Jake. When Jake lost their power, in the Renaissance, it was taken down, enslaved. They got no power. They don't run nothing over there. No Vatican, nothing like that. I think the Vatican, that came after Jake was taken down. I'm pretty sure. I think that came around the Renaissance. Yeah, so it came into existence on February 11, 1929, so way after Jake was taken down. Alright, so I just want to talk about this and then get my one little last precept and then close it off. So look at the papal bull slavery. Papal bulls like a decree. Several papal bulls were issued regarding slavery, so justifying others condemning it. Notable examples include Dum Diversis and Romanus Pontifex by Pope Nicholas V, which authorized enslavement of non-Christians and facilitated the Portuguese slave trade. And a lot of people getting taken down. Later, Pope Eugene IV issued Cisa Dudum, 1435, forbidding enslavement of Guanche people in the Canary Islands. That's in Africa. I don't know if those are Jakes or not, man. They could be Hamites. I don't know. Pope Paul III, Solons Duas, declared indigenous people of the Americas to be truly men and forbid their enslavement. Right, and then later on, but there's a long history between slavery and the Catholic Church. Right, see here. Catholic teaching, Middle Ages, 16th century, and they talk about all these different things. We're not gonna go into all this, but these papal bulls, they push for slavery. Just look at the Portuguese slave trade. Played a major role in transatlantic slave trade, exporting an estimated 5.8 million enslaved Africans to the Americas, primarily Brazil, between 1501 and 1866. That's why Portuguese is a big language down there, because they were, a big power down there. I think that's where they were doing sugar, and that's where you get the martial art capoeira. Jake down there was getting enslaved, getting hell put on them. So he pretty much made that as like a way, like, to fight and learn and teach each other how to fight, whilst, making it look like a dance, right? And all that stuff, it just shows, I don't know if brothers still use that scripture, Jacob is the form of all things, but, pretty much, man, it just shows how we're special people unto the Lord, man, because, our people can be down and we could still come up with all these new fighting styles and different things and, show, crazy amounts of ingenuity. Even, that people here, where we ain't got no power in this society, we still build stuff. We still, we help modernize this country, things like that. Traffic light. I think there was a Jake that was involved in the creation of a light bulb. All kinds of different things, man. This book of Deuteronomy 20:36. Lord shall bring thee in thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, into a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. Yeah, thou shalt serve other gods of wood and stone. Right, and that king was brought here. That King Mashah, King David, was brought here as well, man. And he was here among us, while he was still alive and serving bondage with us here, and so we were all here, and this is a nation that we were, that us and our fathers have known, right? Because, King Solomon sent Hiram over here, but this was in a land where, mankind dwelt, it wasn't a land where people stayed for, century plus, made, started long family lines. That didn't come until the Northern came down here and really truly settled the land. The other people that came here were visitors, right? Worshiping those gods, wood and stone, right? So, we were worshiping gods that, we didn't know. Wood, the Catholic Church, stone, all these other Muslim things, man. The Kaaba stone, Catholicism, Islam, right? We were serving these gods. But the main things we were forced to do was to worship and follow. Well, here in America, was to follow Christianity and Catholicism. However, I believe with the Ottoman Empire, I believe we were forced to follow Islam. Well, at least according to this, it's a little bit murky. How they treat black freedom. While talking about the slaves, persecution. Okay, either or, here in this place, we would serve these different gods, because we would be cut off from being a people. See here into the Ottomans' forced conversion. No, and kind of yes. So I don't know if they did that to Jake when they took him to. Then this one, maybe I'll look into it. Okay. They're talking about their, because those Ottomans, they weren't, like some of them were Ishmaelites, but some of them were Edomites too. And they would capture other Edomites and then force them to follow Islam, And let there be that Lord, and Shalom.